All right, so we're diving into some serious JFK territory
Oh,
today.
yeah, this is going to be good.
It's Volume 6, Issue 3 of the Dealey Plaza Echo.
The British Journal.
Exactly, from November 2002. So this is some real hardcore JFK research, friend.
This is like the British JFK researchers, insider club kind of thing.
Yeah, and this particular issue is packed.
It's a good one.
We've got Marina Oswald,
Oh, yeah?
a possible JFK assassination attempt in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
medical illustrator wrestling with JFK's wounds,
Right.
and even a letter from Candy Bar talking about Jack Ruby.
That's a lot to cover.
It is. It is. So let's jump right in with Marina. John J. Johnson wrote, How Marina Oswald Prevented the Assassination of Richard Nixon.
Catchy title.
Right. I know. That's what caught my eye, too. Okay, so what does he say?
Well, he really breaks down this whole story about Marina supposedly stopping Lee Harvey Oswald from shooting Nixon.
It's physically stopping him.
Yeah, during a supposed visit to Dallas.
Okay.
But the thing is, her story changes over time.
Oh, really? How
Yeah.
so?
Well, first, she says she locked Oswald in the bathroom.
To keep him away from Nixon.
Right. Then she's holding the door shut.
Hmm.
And then it becomes this whole big struggle between them.
Oh, a changing story. That's always a red flag.
Exactly. Plus, there's no evidence to back up any of her versions of events.
Really? None at all?
Nope. And Johnson also brings up that actually it was Lyndon B. Johnson who was in Dallas at the time.
Not Nixon.
Right, not Nixon.
Huh. So the FBI even questioned who Oswald was really after.
They did, but Marina insisted it was Nixon.
Why was she so sure?
Well, she claimed she knew his name because of that famous kitchen debate with Khrushchev.
So what do you make of all this?
Well, for me, it shows how even eyewitness accounts can be unreliable, especially with such a high-profile case.
Yeah, especially one with so many conspiracy theories floating around.
Exactly. You got to be critical of sources and really look for that solid evidence.
Definitely, because this whole case is like a breeding ground for misinformation.
You got that right.
All right, so speaking of alternative theories, let's move on to Chicago.
Chicago.
Yes. Mark Bridger's article, A Rough Guide to Oswald Lookalikes, Part 6. Thomas Vallee, the Chicago Oswald.
Okay, this one is interesting.
It is, right.
Yeah.
It suggests there might have been another assassination plot in Chicago.
Just weeks before Dallas.
Yeah, President Kennedy was scheduled to visit on November 2nd, but the trip got canceled.
Last minute.
Yeah, and here's the crazy part. The Secret Service was investigating two separate threats at the time.
Seriously.
First, there was this supposed four-man hit team.
With high-powered rifles.
Yep.
Wow.
And there was even an informant, oddly enough. His code name was Lee.
Lee. Interesting.
I know, right?
But was this ever substantiated?
Well, the whole thing's shrouded in secrecy.
Sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It does.
Okay, so what about the second threat?
That involved Thomas Vallee, a former Marine linked to the John Birch Society.
And the Secret Service was watching him.
Very closely.
Why? What made him a threat?
Well, he had a documented history of mental instability, for one.
I see.
And he was arrested with a concealed weapon, a hunting knife.
Okay, that's definitely cause for concern.
And get this, they also found ammo for an M1 rifle in his car.
An M1! Wow, it's like they're almost setting him up to be another patsy, like Oswald.
Exactly. And there's more of the planned motorcade route in Chicago.
Yeah.
It had a potential kill zone.
You like Dealey Plaza?
Very similar, yeah. And to top it all off, you've got Agent Abraham Bolden claiming there was a cover-up of this whole Chicago plot.
So he's saying the Secret Service knew about it, but swept it under the rug.
Basically. It really makes you wonder, what if the Chicago trip hadn't been canceled?
It's a chilling thought. Would Kennedy's fate have been different?
Right. Would November 2nd be the day we all remember?
Makes you think.
It does, it does. So we've got this potential plot in Chicago, and it all seems a little too close to Dallas for comfort.
Too many coincidences.
Way too many. All right, let's switch gears for a minute. Let's talk medical evidence.
All right, what do we have?
Well, we've got this article by Barry Keane called For the Sake of Historical Accuracy.
Okay, what's that about?
It focuses on Harold Rydberg.
Who's that?
He was the medical illustrator tasked with recreating JFK's wounds.
For the Warren Commission.
Yep. And here's the crazy part.
Yeah.
He was actually at Bethesda Naval Hospital when JFK's body arrived.
He saw it firsthand.
He did. But when he had to create those official drawings of the wounds,
Yeah.
they denied him access to the autopsy photos and x-rays.
You're kidding?
Nope. They told him to base the drawings on verbal descriptions.
Verbal descriptions.
From who? The autopsy doctors, Commanders Humes and Boswell.
So they wouldn't even let him see the actual evidence.
Apparently not. And Rydberg even raised concerns about the accuracy.
Of course, how could he possibly be accurate without seeing the actual wound?
Exactly. But they still didn't let him see anything. Later on, he tried again to get access so he can make corrections.
Yeah.
They completely shut him down.
That's unbelievable. This whole thing really makes you question the Warren Commission's findings.
It does, doesn't it? It makes you wonder how much of it was based on, like, potentially flawed evidence.
You can't have a solid investigation without transparency.
Right. And this was a huge investigation. It needed to be thorough.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's take a break from all the serious stuff for a second. We've got this letter from Candy Bar.
Oh, yeah, the stripper.
Yep. And it's all about her relationship with Jack Ruby.
It's nice to get a little personal glimpse into these people's lives, you know?
I agree. It humanizes them.
It does.
So Candy Bar never worked at Jack Ruby's Carousel Club,
Okay.
but they were close friends for years. She talks about how protective he was of her when she was younger, his visits after she got out of prison, even the gifts he brought her,
Like what?
an air conditioner, money, dogs and puppies.
Aw, puppies. See, there was a softer side to this guy.
Right. But there's a big mystery here.
What's that?
The letter is addressed to Ernie.
Ernie.
Yeah. And no one knows who that is.
That's kind of a fun little mystery.
It is. And we're just scratching the surface of this whole issue of the Dealey Plaza Echo.
I bet.
There's an article disputing that whole Oswald cellmate story.
Oh, I've heard about that one. That's a good one.
And we've really got to dig into those schematic drawings Rydberg created, especially CE 385, CE 386, and CE 388.
They were pretty important for the Warren Commission, right?
Yeah, but their accuracy is really questionable.
Considering how they came about, I'm not surprised.
Right. During his testimony, Commander Humes even admitted that it would have been impossible for Rydberg to be accurate without those photos.
But they still use them anyway.
I know, it just shows how the investigation might have been compromised.
By a lack of access to key evidence.
Yeah, potentially shaping the outcome.
It's a big deal.
It is. This whole issue really raises questions about the official narrative.
It encourages you to think critically about the evidence.
Exactly. And to be open to alternative explanations.
Which is what we're all about.
Exactly. That's the beauty of this whole deep dive.
It is.
Questioning the narrative, exploring new perspectives, trying to put together this historical puzzle.
And sometimes the pieces just don't fit.
They really don't.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, ready for another curveball?
Hit me with it.
The second Oswald theory.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
Buckle up.
I'm ready. So this article, When Did the Sightings of a Second Oswald Cease? By John Galter, it really dives into some witness testimony that's pretty intriguing.
Second Oswald. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
Well, Galter basically argues that there could have been an Oswald imposter or even, like, a double agent.
Whoa, hold on. A double agent in Dallas.
Yeah, operating in the days leading up to the assassination.
That's a pretty big claim. What's his evidence?
He focuses a lot on Mary Dowling's testimony. She was a waitress at the Dobbs House restaurant.
Okay, I remember that place. Oswald used to go there, right?
Yeah, he was regular. But she says he didn't come in for his usual breakfast on Wednesday, November 20th.
That is interesting.
Right. He only showed up later, around 10 a.m., and apparently he was in a really bad mood.
Didn't she say he swore at her?
He did, and remember, she knew him. He came in every morning like clockwork between 7 and 7:30 a.m.
So this was definitely out of character for him.
Totally. And get this, after he left the restaurant, he was supposedly picked up by a man and a woman in a black Dodge.
A man and a woman.
Uh-huh. Some people think they were CIO.
Okay, this is getting interesting.
And they drove Oswald to Redbird Airfield.
Rydberg, what were they doing there?
They met with the owner of an aviation company and chartered a light aircraft.
For a win.
Specifically for the afternoon of Friday, November 22nd.
The day of the assassination. Are you saying there was a getaway plane involved?
It's possible, right. And here's another weird thing. The FBI report documenting this airfield owner's sighting of Oswald, it was later backdated.
Backdated? To when?
July 1963.
That's shady as hell.
It's like they were trying to erase any connection between Oswald and that plane.
It really does seem that way, but hold on, there's more fun.
There's always more.
While all this was happening, there was another Oswald at the Texas School Book Depository.
Wait, another Oswald?
On that same Wednesday, November 20th, the TSBD superintendent, Roy Truly, and some other employees, including someone identified as Oswald, were examining rifles that had recently been purchased.
So you've got a confirmed Oswald sighting at the depository, and this other possible Oswald at the airfield.
2 Oswalds, a mysterious getaway plane, a backdated FBI report. Starting to get a headache.
It is a lot to process.
It is. What are we supposed to make of all this?
Well, Michael Eddowes, a British attorney, had a pretty interesting theory in his book, The Oswald File.
What did he say?
He thought the man who came back from Russia wasn't the real Oswald.
Okay, now we're getting into conspiracy theory territory.
He thought it was a KGB double, a sleeper agent trained for the assassination.
Oh, and that the real Oswald never even left the Soviet Union.
That's what he proposed.
That is wild, but it would explain some of those discrepancies we've been talking about.
It would. And don't forget all those rumors that flew around after Oswald's death.
About the exhumation of his body.
Yeah, people questioning whether it was really him in the grave.
There are those inconsistencies, like the missing craniotomy scar from the autopsy.
So it's possible the guy Jack Ruby shot wasn't actually Lee Harvey Oswald.
If that's true, that would rewrite history as we know it.
It would. But even if you don't buy into the whole double agent thing, it still raises questions about Oswald's identity.
Think his role in the assassination.
Exactly.
This is blowing my mind. A second Oswald. It adds a whole other level to this whole story.
It really does.
Makes you question everything you thought you knew.
That's the whole point of looking at these alternative theories. It makes you re-examine the evidence, you know? Challenge your assumptions.
I like it. I like it. It's good stuff.
You know, earlier you were talking about that what-if scenario with the Chicago assassination attempt.
Yeah, what if it had been successful?
Well, this issue actually has a little blurb about historical events that have happened on November 2nd. Yeah, just a weird little coincidence.
It makes you wonder, though, right? Would it be a national day of mourning if it had happened in Chicago?
Instead of Dallas.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about.
It is. It is. It makes you realize how these random events can be so pivotal.
Absolutely.
Like, what if JFK hadn't canceled that Chicago trip? Could we even be here right now?
It's a thought-provoking question.
It is. So this deep dive has been incredible. We've uncovered so many new clues, new questions.
It's like peeling back the layers of history.
It is. It is. And just when I think I've got a handle on things, another theory pops up.
It's what keeps things interesting.
It does. It does. It really emphasizes that history isn't just about dates and facts.
It's about people.
It's about choices and the impact of those choices.
And in a case like this, the search for the truth never really ends.
Exactly. We may never have all the answers, but the journey is important.
Very well said.
Okay. Speaking of journeys, let's look at this diagram by Don Roberdeau.
Oh, a diagram. What's it show?
It's actually pretty cool. It shows the measurements of Oswald himself, the paper bag he supposedly used to carry the rifle, and then the disassembled rifle itself.
What's the point of that?
It gets at one of the big questions surrounding the assassination.
What's that?
How could Oswald have carried all that stuff into the TSBD without anyone noticing?
That has always been a point of contention.
Right. Especially with all the witnesses around.
This diagram really challenges the official narrative.
It does, doesn't it? A lot of researchers have questioned the magic bullet theory and the idea that Oswald acted alone.
And this just adds more fuel to the fire.
Makes you think, maybe the pieces of this puzzle were manipulated.
To fit a predetermined conclusion.
Exactly.
You know, while we're on the topic of visual evidence, I think it's worth circling back to those Rydberg drawings.
Those were pretty central to the Warren Commission's case.
But their accuracy is highly questionable.
Yeah, based on everything we've discussed.
By relying on verbal descriptions instead of the actual photos, they might have perpetuated inaccuracies.
And that has a huge impact on the entire investigation.
It's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
The whole thing becomes unstable.
Exactly.
And it's not just about the medical evidence itself, it's about transparency. Thoroughness in such an important investigation.
Right. We need to be able to trust that the information we're given is accurate.
This issue does a good job of raising those questions.
It encourages us to be skeptical, to dig deeper,
to look for alternative explanations.
and not to just blindly accept what we're told.
Especially with a case like this.
It reminds us that history is constantly being reinterpreted.
As new evidence comes to light.
Yes.
You know, there will always be those who stick to the official story.
And those who seek alternative explanation.
But it's the tension between those perspectives that keeps this whole conversation going. And that pushes us closer to the truth.
Absolutely. And who knows what the future holds? Maybe new evidence will surface that changes everything.
Or maybe the truth will always remain elusive.
But one thing is certain, the JFK assassination will always captivate us.
What happened in Dallas that day changed history.
And the search for answers will continue to inspire us.
The journey itself, the pursuit of truth, That's just as important as the destination.
It is. This deep dive into the Dealey Plaza Echo has been a real eye-opener.
It's amazing how much one issue of a research journal can spark so much discussion.
And challenge long-held beliefs.
It's been a lot to take in,
It has.
and I'm sure our listener has some thoughts of their own. It really is amazing how many different thoughts one issue can provoke.
Yeah, it's like each article is another piece of the puzzle.
Right, and it challenges us to think about how they all fit together, or if they even do.
And that's what I love about this whole deep dive.
Me too.
You know, it's not just about learning information, it's about engaging with it.
Questioning it.
Yeah.
Coming up with our own interpretations.
A lot of people approach this case with, like, a sense of certainty.
Like they've got it all figured out.
Right. They're clinging to one theory or another.
But the truth is, there are still so many unanswered questions.
And that's okay.
It is. It's part of what makes it so fascinating.
Exactly. The mystery keeps it alive.
It keeps us searching for answers.
And this issue, it's a great example of that.
It is.
You've got all these different perspectives.
Some more out there than others.
Definitely. But they all add to the conversation.
They do. They do. It's all part of the search for truth.
And history, it's an ongoing interpretation.
What we think is true today
Yeah.
might be totally different tomorrow.
With new evidence, new perspectives.
It's kind of cool.
It is. We're constantly learning and evolving.
So this deep dive, I think it shows how important it is to keep an open mind.
And be willing to challenge those assumptions.
Yeah, because it's easy to get stuck in one way of thinking.
To get caught up in a particular narrative.
But it's so important to step back.
And consider those other viewpoints.
What if we're wrong?
Exactly.
What if we're missing something?
That's what keeps me coming back to this case.
Me too. Me too. It's those questions.
It's that willingness to question, to doubt, to stay curious.
That keeps us searching.
And that's what makes it so rewarding.
It's not about finding all the answers.
It's about the journey, the discovery.
Well said. Well said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Dealey Plaza Echo,
Yeah.
what are your big takeaways?
That's a good question.
Anything that really stood out to you?
I think just the sheer variety of theories, it's amazing.
It is.
And it makes you realize just how complex this case is.
Right. There's no easy answers.
No.
Do any of those theories resonate with you more than others?
You know, I try to keep an open mind about all of them.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think it's important to consider all the possibilities
I
and not get too attached to any one explanation.
Because who knows, right? New evidence could come out tomorrow and change everything.
Exactly.
So what do you think our listeners should take away from this?
I think the biggest thing is to never stop questioning,
To keep searching for the truth.
even if it seems elusive.
Because there's always more to learn.
More to uncover.
More to understand.
The JFK assassination. It's a case that will always fascinate.
It will. It will. It's a part of history that continues to challenge us.
And I think this deep dive, it's given us a lot to think about.
It has. It has. And I hope it's inspired our listener to do some digging of their own.
To explore those different perspectives.
To keep the conversation going.
Because the truth is out there, somewhere.
Maybe. Until next time, keep diving deep.